Thank you for inviting me to Geneva. Let's start with a quote of Kevin Kelly. And Kelly wrote this book, still like it very much, 1994, Out of Control. He's studying complexity. Complex systems. So he's studying nature, but also technology, and he's studying cities and city regions and territories. Because cities are the most complex technical systems there are, the most complex social systems you can imagine. So the overall governance of these systems that are defined by complexity it must arise from the bottom up. So this is how we started, and how I started in Amsterdam 10 years ago. We had this plan made in 2003 for the municipality of Amsterdam. And as you can see, the plan is rather bleak, right? The colors. And there's not much to see in it. It's easy to read. In fact, it's a kind of, I would almost say, boring plan. But then something went totally wrong in city council. So citizens were protesting. And the alderman responsible for city planning, he got annoyed. And he skipped the whole thing. The whole plan was a failure, in fact. We had no long-term planning for the Amsterdam municipality anymore since 2003. And everybody at my department said, the city department, that you can't make long-term visions anymore. So something was wrong in this planner's paradise in the Netherlands, and that we have to rethink the planning. So that is what we did. We started writing a story about the future of the Amsterdam region. A narrative. Not a plan at all, for sure, no. But an inspiring story. Now let me tell you, planners are very bad storytellers, right? But we people, we live in stories. We love stories. That's what we try to do. This story contained 20 chapters, right? And we were building up, and there was a tension in it, and there was a beginning and an end, and it was really amazing. And people, yeah, they loved it. This is how Wikipedia works. You know, this encyclopedia with all these chapters, and these hundreds of thousands of people contributing to this encyclopedia. It's built without any experts. It's a great example of mass amateurization. So we did the same. We did the same by telling a story again and again and again, and adding all this positive feedback to the story. The story is growing. It's becoming richer. And you can tell the story in your own way. Why not? So the story can grow, and it can change, and it can become personalized, and people can internalize the story. And they do feel part of the story. That's what is happening if you do it right. So it works like this, right? Your effectiveness is growing in time, because you're generating increasing returns. Of course, it is a kind of out of control. You're not in control anymore. It's not you only. It's not only the experts. And there are so many people now contributing to the planning. So what happened? In December 2007, the politicians decided to change the Randstad. So we had a north wing of the Randstad and we had a south wing. Amsterdam was part of the north wing. And the politicians decided to change the name. It was not any longer a Randstad. It was not any longer north wing of the Randstad. It became the metropolitan region of Amsterdam. So after 1 year of storytelling, they decided to do this. Of course, the Dutch state thought we have to continue the planning, even though we are now in the middle of dramatic circumstances. We have no authority anymore for the Randstad. So we have to do it ourselves. So they invented this Randstad Urgent program to enforce some projects, big projects in the western part of the country. And really try to enforce it because they couldn't believe that you could do the planning bottom up. And of course it was no problem because in 9 months' time we created this long-term vision for the former north wing of the Randstad. Here you are. And everybody agreed, let's do it this way. Because we developed it bottom up. And even the politicians were amazed that it was so easy now, that there was no opposition, that everybody agreed. So we decided to make now a long-term vision for Amsterdam. And now I'm talking about 2008, 2009. And we said, we do it again. We start a process from the bottom up. And we need a critical mass of citizens to contribute for this long-term vision. We built a free state of Amsterdam, you can see. It lasted only 6 weeks, right? 6 weeks. We had some 5,000 citizens in this free state. Of course, the atmosphere had to be inspiring. So we made a magazine. It went from door to door in the local newspaper, in the Amsterdam newspaper, one of the biggest, Parool. And everybody could read about this free state. It was an exhibition. We invited 10 architectural firms, young architects from the Amsterdam region, to make models for us. 10 models. These models should not be plans at all, but they should be about freedom. So unending possibilities, that you would be inspired by looking at these models, and even that citizens could build on these models. Children loved it. It was easy to get 5,000 citizens in this free state, this exhibition, right? But not only that, every night we had programs and we invited citizens to organize a program for us and bring their own audience. So, can you imagine 29 evenings? This night, all the philosophers from Amsterdam. That night, all the homeless people from Amsterdam. That night, we had all the expats living in Amsterdam. That night, we had, you mentioned them. So, what do you need for collective intelligence? You need, for sure, a critical mass, but far more important, a diversity. So, a diverse crowd of human beings. The second is independence. Independence. So every opinion, every insight, every fact holds. No consensus, please, no consensus. And the third one is decentralization. Do it as local as possible. So do it at the city level, the neighborhood level. It should be local because you also need the experiences, the experience of people. If you do the planning this way, you can organize this wisdom of crowds. So we generated this diversity. And it was all about telling stories. People were telling stories about their city, about their neighborhood, and what happened, and what they liked, and what they are dreaming of, etc., etc. And we aggregated everything. So we didn't select the best. We didn't strive for consensus, but we aggregated everything, like the internet does aggregate everything. right? This is how social media work on the internet. And we're doing the same. It's easy. At 5,000, it's a crowd. It's a big crowd. You don't need more in order to become very, very, very intelligent, right? Unbelievable, isn't it? We experts, we always thought that we knew best. It's a pity. It's all about mass amateurization. The whole planning. We need everybody. Everybody has wisdom. So we got presents. Miracles happen. So Dutch television decided to make a documentary, a 55 minutes documentary about this whole planning and this Free State. And there it was. So almost 1 million people saw this inspiring documentary and heard a story about where cities were heading for in the world. What is happening with urbanization, with the help of Saskia Sassen from Colombia and Richard Florida from Toronto. They were all in this funny story about the Amsterdam future. And all these people were listening and looking at it and getting excited. So this is how you can generate really increasing returns. But of course, you need the feedback. You have to listen as planners. You should not talk that much, right? You have to listen and aggregate. And in 2 months' time, we had our long-term vision for the Amsterdam region. I know it is difficult for amateurs to read a map, for sure. We professionals, in a way, we love abstract things, don't we? We love statistics. We try to develop a professional in-crowd of professionals, and we share our insights and our proudness. But the problem is we exclude so much knowledge by doing this. And let me tell you, among your citizens, you will find the greatest entrepreneurs, very intelligent people. So you need this mass amateurization. And also, it is very comfortable for financing all your plans, I can assure you. Because then it's, once you open your planning, people will contribute not only with ideas and knowledge, but also with money, investments. It is the most sustainable long-term vision ever made in this 85 history of my planning department, right? And it was built by thousands and thousands of citizens. And let me tell you, it was adopted by City Council. No vote against. After a 5.5-hour debate, great, well, I would almost say Greek democratic, great speeches, a standing applause, ovational. They loved it, and the city councillors asked for even more vision. They asked for more. And the most important is that its overall governance must arise from the bottom up, right? Thank you.
Somehow you promote a planification without expert, or do you re-question the role that the expert should have in this urban planning?
Yeah. I don't want to exclude planners, and also, of course we also need the facts and the statistics and everything. And for sure we have to become more communicative. Writing narratives and building platforms, it's what planners maybe always try to do. But now there is this technology. Now we have the internet. Now we can do it.
On est maintenant en Suisse et dans d'autres pays sur des démarches participatives qui, on le comprend à Amsterdam, sont poussées, je dirais, à l'extrême. Moi, il y a un intérêt de voir comment ça se développe. Je n'ai pas encore, dans ma tête, fait totalement le lien entre le storytelling et la finalité du plan. Comment est-ce qu'on traduit finalement les questions ou les sentiments des habitants, comment est-ce qu'on les traduit en règlement d'urbanisme, parce que la finalité, elle est malgré tout là. L'interrogation, elle demeure, et puis depuis longtemps, c'est qu'on sait qu'aujourd'hui, on en est sur les questions citoyennes, on utilise ça pour faire passer les projets plus facilement. Il y a toujours des exceptions, ça et là, de projets qui ont inclus dès le début une large part de participation, mais on sait bien qu'on reste encore en Suisse aujourd'hui sur des projets avant tout d'experts, sur une expertise, sur le rôle des professionnels. Là, ce qui m'intéresse dans le projet d'Amsterdam, c'est qu'on fait le pari que le projet serait meilleur si les citoyens le faisaient. Ce qu'on ne peut pas déterminer, c'est est-ce que le projet est réellement meilleur que ce qu'on aurait pu faire entre professionnels. Ça, la question reste ouverte. Et puis, il faudra encore qu'on réussisse à mesurer ce qu'on a fait, si ce n'est que pour l'instant on a un plan qui satisfait beaucoup de monde. Mais un plan qui satisfait ou une planification qui satisfait beaucoup de monde, ça ne veut pas dire encore qu'elle va atteindre ses objectifs, et notamment ses objectifs de durabilité.
I see all these massive investments in the city, of which I doubt whether they are really effective. And most of them maybe are even foolish. I think a far more sustainable plan, lacking really big projects. It's more making maximum use of everything that is already there. So in order to reach for this more sustainable world, we should search for ways to spend our money only on those things that are really valuable for the community, right? So this is how we can enter this sustainable world, and it is also a profitable world, because this is very good for business. I can assure you, very good for business, this model. But it's not the neoliberal model at all.
Okay.
It's far better. It's a kind of radical democratic model.
Je pense que la question du processus est absolument essentielle. Je pense qu'il y a un mot qui est important, c'est une approche intégrée. Et pour ça, je ne pense pas qu'on peut exclure les experts, je ne pense pas qu'on peut exclure les autorités. On doit inclure les autorités, inclure les utilisateurs, inclure les experts. Et je pense que la démarche participative aura fait sa révolution complète quand elle aura compris qu'en fait ces trois approches doivent être intégrées. À Genève, on a mis en place un petit leitmotiv comme ça, un trio qui dit maîtrise d'ouvrage organisée, ça veut dire canton et commune organisés ensemble. Déjà, ça c'est tout un projet. Maîtrise d'œuvre, ça veut dire tous les spécialistes, les project managers, avec les architectes, les urban planners, les spécialistes, les financiers. Et puis, maîtrise d'usage organisé. It means project users. Et en fait, c'est bien ces trois choses, ces trois mondes qui doivent s'intégrer. Et je pense que le mot intégration, au travers d'un processus, et de quelque chose qui est en mouvement, dans une dynamique, je pense que ça, c'est une des choses qui doit permettre de faire émerger, bien sûr, plus vite, mais plus qualitatif, répondant plus à la demande des citoyens, répondant plus à la capacité financière des collectivités à financer ces demandes aujourd'hui. Il faut continuer à construire sur ces trois piliers.
Nous, on est un espace d'information et de débat pour les habitants et les associations des quartiers de Saint-Jean. Le groupe de pilotage du forum, qui est en fait un petit peu le comité ou les gens au niveau local qui s'engagent dans le forum, ils entendent qu'il y a des choses qui vont changer. Donc ils entendent les choses des planificateurs qui descendent. Par contre, au niveau local, on a aussi des choses à dire. Et du coup, on retransmet ça et ça remonte. Mais surtout, on provoque ces débats en disant, mais vous, les planificateurs, c'est bien, venez nous exposer vos projets. Est-ce que vous voulez le faire avec nous ou sans nous? Alors souvent, la réponse, c'est quand même, bon, on va le faire avec vous, parce que c'est un peu difficile de dire non, quand vous avez une salle bondée de 200 personnes, de dire non, on va le faire tout seul dans notre coin. Donc oui, on va le faire avec vous. Mais après, c'est de savoir comment on va travailler ensemble. Là où j'aime bien ce que Zef évoquait, c'est de dire, on construit déjà. On essaye d'agir tout de suite, de se dire, au fond, aujourd'hui, avec les informations qu'on nous donne, qu'est-ce qu'on peut en faire pour déjà construire l'avenir tout de suite. Ça, il faut du temps parce qu'il faut réunir plusieurs acteurs. On le crée. Je ne crois pas qu'on le crée tout seul dans son coin.
Is it correct to say that what you are trying to do is like on the upper right of this scale, which is co-construction with the inhabitants, is that you don't come and say, we have decided, this is the drawing we've done. You start with nothing, with a story maybe.
Well, I discovered that you don't even need a story. You have to collaborate from the very beginning. But of course, it is possible to start with an idea. What is crucial is whether it is inspiring for people. So most of our plans are not inspiring at all, I discovered. I'm sorry for all the architects. And that's why I like these models in the Free State, because they were not plans anymore. And people could feel it, that they were free now. Now they could give their opinion.
Is it the fact that there is a technology there that facilitates communication, or is it the fact that somehow you think it as an open system?
We needed a new definition of planning. So we said, well, we don't know exactly what planning is, but it is at least 80% communication, how we relate to other people. When the internet started growing, everybody is now entering the arena, and no profession can continue in the old way. So not even the planners. I think they are the latest to change, but they will have to. And if they don't change their habits, if they don't change their approaches, they will be forced to.
Internet and like social networks, and that's how you manage to do it now, I think, and that's how a citizen can get themselves together and like promote big projects. I can just talk about my experience with my associations. We started with a lot of ambitions because we really focused on an area in Geneva which is like really, really strategic. So the basic idea was to transform a whole military caserne in a big central cultural center. Our first purpose was really to be a kind of platform, for all those people interested in our project, and we wanted to relay the ambition and the will of everybody, every citizen, and even that we realized quite quickly that was not possible. When you have too many people, and thus it comes back to the idea of internet, when there's so many information, so many inputs, after there's nothing, and that's maybe what is a big challenge, I think, and I would be very interested to know how you deal with this.
Yes, you get so much information, right? I fully agree with that. I'm talking about platforms, and these platforms should be open, and they should be they should be growing, and they can become very, very big. It depends, of course, how inspired everybody is. One of the little tricks is you have these apps now on the internet. You build a cloud. You make a cloud of all the information, and then you see what people really think is important, without losing all the rest. It's still in the cloud, but you see the most important things. So after every meeting, we make a cloud, And then we see, gosh, yeah, it's like this. This is very practical, but it's a great help. And of course, you have to share all this information with other people. Once all this information has become part of one great story, people will understand it.
The very question that was being raised tonight is about communication and the methods and techniques that people are going to use to communicate more effectively with each other. And I think it's really interesting that in Zef's presentation tonight, he was suggesting that the new means of communication was the word. And of course, that's a big change, because before it's always been the plan or the model, as you said. But the model came in relatively late. And I think one of the things that we haven't heard about tonight is that planning always involves conflicts. It's not simple. There's always conflicting points of view. And how do we deal with conflicts when we're building our story? Because at the end of the day, the story has to be a consensus. Or is it not? Is there contradiction in your story? We didn't hear anything about this. And it's a fundamental issue, I can tell you, working with people in planning for so long. But that's the question about methods and techniques to promote citizens in the planning process. And it's, I would say it's one of 4 crucial prerequisites. The second would be social acceptability. Are people willing to participate? Who participates? We find in Switzerland, for example, that foreigners don't participate. There is a language problem, especially if we're communicating with words. Can people express themselves in their own language? I think this becomes a fundamental question. And behind that question, of course, is when people are willing to participate, are they doing it out of their self-interest, or are they doing it for the common good? And this is one of the major criticisms of participation that has been on the agenda for over 30 years now. The third prerequisite is political commitment. Obviously, if you're going to engage in the process that you presented so well here tonight, the elected officials have to agree on it at the outset. That has to be a prerequisite. You can't, at the end of the day, say, no, we're not going to adopt this. So I think that is a fundamental challenge to the role of elected officials, to the role of civil servants, and to the role of the professionals, as we've heard from my colleagues here. And it's all about power sharing at the end of the day. And I'm not sure that people that are in elected positions are willing to give up a certain amount of power. And then the last prerequisite is the whole institutional framework. Although the laws and the regulations and that might be things that we don't really want to worry about, the nuts and the bolts, they're there. They're part of society, and we have to deal with them. And particularly at the scale that you're working at, which is so difficult, we're talking about public and private property rights. We're talking about infrastructure that's going between municipalities or different institutional competences. I mean, I think this is where the role of the professional planner becomes really crucial. What you've really showed us tonight is that what has changed so much in 30 years is this shift towards the wiki society, as you called it, the whole means and mechanisms that we use to represent major planning projects, and that at the end of the day, education for planners has to change. And so we're not saying they're not losing their job. We have to define a different role for them.
This is not utopian planning at all. This is how we human beings relate to each other, and at this moment it is full of conflicts, for sure. So as I told you, it now takes more than 10 years in order to implement a plan in Amsterdam, because there are so many Citizens opposed, so angry. Can we have less conflicts? Yes, we can. We can, if we change our approach. Because what we discovered is that people are very reasonable, but then you have to behave. You have to ask them. So open questions, not only asking for yes or no, which is stupid, but asking open questions and asking for commitment and for help. Then, who participates? I never use the word participatory planning because I hate participation. We exercised participatory planning for now 40 years, didn't we? And we failed. And we did it again and again, and it's boring. And these evenings, they are terrible. And it doesn't work. So this is not participatory anymore. This is far more fundamental. This is far more fundamental. It's everybody, well, what you told is mass amateurization. This everybody can participate from the very start. Is it self-interest? Is it dominating? No. My experience is no. People are reasonable. They know so much more. We distrust them. We think it's only the self-interest. Again, it's our attitude, our approach, which is fundamental. We have to change the educational system, and I'm working on it at the University of Amsterdam because I think this is key. We're talking here about ethics. This is also an ethical kind of question. Do we need consensus in the end of the day? Yes, we will get consensus in the end of the day, but it will be a present. So we can't enforce consensus. It's all about how the birth of a project, a city project. And if the birth is successful, then it can become something great. Then political commitment and all these elected officials. Yeah, you're right. Right. And in a way, I was very lucky over the last 8 years, and I know that, right? I had the city council was, especially in Amsterdam over the last 8 years, was very in favor of this kind of approach, and they let me experiment. Now we know, that it works, right? Of course, this is all about power sharing. All about power sharing. It is, yeah. But the whole world at this moment is about sharing power, isn't it? And that's what we have to do. What we have to do. So we have to empower as many people as possible. What will happen with the institutional framework? We don't know. Keep it this way. We don't have to change the political system in order to do this kind of planning. So we don't want a revolution. So the whole institutional framework should be there. And I don't need this another reorganization. Stop it. Reorganizations of the institutional framework will not work, right? It's something different. It's our approach. It's all in our attitude. It's far more basic. What is very important is that once you do this, you get a different kind of atmosphere in your city. It becomes more favorable to planning. There will be more trust. Of course, there were only 8,000 participants in this planning process, which lasted, as I told you, only 6 weeks. So, what the hell? But these 8,000 talked to so many people about this. So many people have seen the documentary, so these millions. And there was a wonderful discussion all over the city. And people became proud of the city. So all this, the whole atmosphere changed. And it is not just for a day, but it is for years. And you can profit from that. The fundamentals of planning is this unending process of argumentation. So the day after we start this, we are again in the middle of this process. We go on and go on and go on. We have to argue everything. So the whole planning process, yes, you're right, it's a process, should become interactive. And that's where we all planners have to work. We could transform the whole planning apparatus this way.
Yeah.